Hey, welcome back to Global Environment. Last time we were together, we started to talk about individual biomes. And the last biome we talked about were those dry seasonal forests. And one thing I wanted to point out is that they are very constrained by fire. And it's interesting because the next biome we're going to start to talk about has some of the same constraints with burnings. Okay. So we're going to talk about tropical savannas. And again, tropical savannas often surround tropical rainforests, in some ways similar conditions, in other ways very different. Here's another slide that shows the location. Okay, here's a shot of a savanna in Kenya. What do you see here? What do you see here? So the conditions here are drier. It's similar in a way to those dry seasonal forests, a lot less rain, about in many cases half of what you see in a tropical rainforest. Now it's different than a dry seasonal forest because it's even a bit more drier in some cases, and the vegetation is kind of spread around. You have trees with a lot of distance between themselves and other trees. This is kind of interesting. This is a savanna in Costa Rica where you normally don't see them, and that is due to fire and grazing. You actually get an artificial savanna. Now, savannas are known for their high productivity, and this shows that there's some water available, rivers and things. Very high productivity, and that leads to megafauna. If you look at Africa, the savannas are often covered with large herds of grazing animals. Again, this contributes to the productivity. Actually, their grazing helps the plants grow in some cases. And again, fire plays a big part in these ecosystems. Here you got a mountain in the distance with glaciers, and when we start talking about ecosystems, we'll say, we'll talk about that ecosystems interact. In this case, some of the vegetation here is due to the glaciers that are in the distance. All right, we're going to talk about desert scrub quite a bit. And again, you can see some in the Americas, some in Africa, also the middle of continents, far away from water, 30 degrees north and south of the equator as well. What do you find here? Deserts make up about 12% of the land surface area and only about 1% of the productivity. Here's a shot I took near a house I lived in East Africa. If I had told you this was Mars, you might believe me. And again, very low productivity, not a lot of plants growing here. Here's another shot. This is Assab in East Africa. These mountains in the distance are actually made out of volcanic pyroclastics. It's like climbing up marbles. And I actually took a trip up this one day with me lovely wife and some students, and somebody started shooting mortar bombs at us. That was kind of a fun day. Another day in the Peace Corps. But again, very dry, as you can imagine, very hot. Some of the plants that do exist, you see succulents. They're designed to hold water, store it. Here's another shot on the way to school. Again, you got to get around the bulls. Low productivity, very challenging for animal life. Okay, let's talk about grasslands. Again, in some ways similar to environments like savannas. You can see in the middle of the U.S., sometimes surrounding desert regions. You get different types of grasslands and prairies. Here's tall grass prairies, and as you can imagine, a lot of tall plants. Sometimes as tall as a person. Very endangered in places like the America because these areas are very productive. They have great soils, and people have moved to these soils and used them for farming. So they've been endangered that way. Again, fire is often a component of these landscapes, a natural component. There's another shot. You also have short grass prairies, a lot less rain, very dry. Here's a shot in Montana, lower productivity, lower biodiversity. These places are also endangered due to people bringing herds of animals, domesticated animals. A lot of grazing goes on, and that has impacted these environments as well. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and there's a few more biomes we'd like to touch on and give you some information on those, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.